This afternoon, it's my honor to welcome and introduce our speaker for the session. Hilary Franz was elected Commissioner of Public Lands for the state of Washington in 2016 and leads the Department of Natural Resources, an agency that manages 6 million acres of lands, 6 million acres of public lands from coastal waters along the Pacific, including the Puget Sound area here where I live, to forests and commercial properties and farmlands across the state of Washington. All of us know that the past several weeks have been hard for many of us across this country, including for those of us on the West Coast. Fires have been burning through our forests and through our small towns, devastating small communities, and impacting our air quality up and down the West Coast. As the leader of Washington's wildfire fighting force, I want to personally thank Commissioner Franz and all of those on the front lines fighting fires, risking their lives to save lives and preserve property. So thank you so much. I'm pleased to be here today also because Commissioner Franz and I share a passion for utilizing our parks and our open spaces and green spaces to benefit growth and well-being and education for our children. So we're thrilled to have Commissioner Franz join us today to share some of her thoughts on innovative strategies and policies that can create bold transformational change in Washington and beyond. And we especially appreciate her taking the time to be with us today during such a challenging time for our state and for her and her team. So please, won't you join me in welcoming Washington State Commissioner of Public Lands, Hilary Franz. Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I, of course, would just love to be with everyone. Probably more than ever before, coming together is exactly what we need at every single level of our community, our state, and our nation, and even our world. And it's especially wonderful to be talking about my two favorite topics, children. I'm a mom of 3 boys, and nature, our environment. I've spent my entire career working to protect nature, first as an environmental attorney and then as the Commissioner of Public Lands for Washington. And I will say I wasn't always an outdoor enthusiast. When I was young, I preferred spending my childhood curled up in a ball reading a book rather than being outside. But thanks to the love of my father, who single parent, took us outdoors to Multnomah Falls right outside the town of Portland, Oregon. And thanks also to Oregon public schools. In 6th grade, I had the great opportunity of going and participating in outdoor education, and it was required, where I got to abandon the asphalt streets of Portland and hike in the woods for a week, explore the different wonders of nature, and where I built confidence cooking a meal on a Bunsen burner. It was truly the transformative piece of my life. You would think that how could a few moments in a huge amount of time could that change, but it did. That 1 week, those times in the woods helped change my life. It's where I fell in love with nature. And so when my children were born, I was determined to raise them on a farm. My thinking was, get them outdoors. They're going to understand. They're going to value. They're going to appreciate it. They're going to be willing to stand up for it and fight for it and protect it. I'm going to raise the next generation of foresters, scientists, activists. So I moved them to a farm where every morning they had to get up at 6 a.m. and milk the goats, feed the chickens, herd the pigs and the sheep. I also homeschooled my children, and while trying to be a lawyer and also a local government official. And my world was very similar to what we see right now, frankly, in the homes across the country. Parents that are teaching their kids while working 2 jobs. My kids survived those years. I think that's really important. I start by saying, but they did more than survive. They actually truly thrived. I remember many a day I'd start 8 a.m. to noon teaching them. And then at noon, I had a job to do. So I sent them outside where they got to roam the forest and play in the waterways of the Puget Sound. And what was amazing is what 3 boys at the age of 3, 5, and 8 can do on their own. Amazing. Literally, I left them outside for 5 to 6 months. No supervision. Don't call CPS. They're all alive, all of their arms and legs. No supervision, and they transformed that landscape. They built a log cabin 9x6, which was the city hall. They built a court system. They divided the properties into teepee settlements. They had a military coup. And frankly, they learned a lot about themselves and the world around them. And now I roll forward and I have a son who's 21 years old. He graduated 2 years early from college. Theo, my middle son just started at Northwestern at the age of 17. At the age of 15, he built an algorithm on Warren Buffett's penny stock theory, thinking he could beat every mutual fund out there. And my youngest, at the age of 12, was International Model of the Year and is now signed with an LA and New York model and acting agent. And I'll be honest, when I got one working at Morgan Stanley, another one studying economics and computer science and foreign policy, and a third signed up with LA and New York, I'm thinking, where did I go wrong? I thought these guys were going to be the next foresters, the next scientists, the next farmers. But the fact is, they went exactly right. All of that time out on the landscape, unsupervised, learning how to work together made them the most courageous, confident, creative, innovative problem solvers and critical thinkers. And when you look around at all the challenges we face in this world right now, at the local, the state, federal, international world, that's exactly what we need more of. And I would like to say that it was great parenting, but the fact is, I truly believe my boys have achieved what they have at a very young age because they had unsupervised time out in nature, where nature taught them and they taught themselves amongst it. In my role, I oversee the state's wildfire fighting. I also oversee 6 million acres of land, 2 million acres of timber, 1 million acres of ag, 2.6 million acres of aquatic land, some of the most beautiful coasts and rivers and lakes. And our management of these lands funds over 125 million for our schools, K through 12, technical community colleges and universities. We fund the buildings that our children learn in. And as we see increasing number of kids and we see decreasing resources and facilities to maintain them, I've asked myself and I've asked my team, why isn't the 6 million acres of land, our forests, our agricultural lands, our aquatic lands, why are they not the classrooms that our children are learning in? We have infinite space, we have infinite problems to solve, and we have infinite opportunities for the future. And where we have to go, not only for ourselves and the future of this planet, but for our children's future, is to outdoor learning. And outdoor learning for all our children, not just a few whose parents or school districts can afford it, but every child. And so what does that look like? You know, early education, you know, they have a saying, give me a child until he or she is 7, and I will give you the man or woman they will become. 7 years. The first 7 years are the most critical time. And we have so many kids who don't have access to early education. So much brain development occurs in those 7 years of life, forming the foundation for lifelong learning, behavior, relationships. And yet we focus so little time and resources on those first 7 years. And with COVID, as parents are trying to figure out how they work and also have childcare within their home, the question becomes even more important. What we should be doing is following the model of tiny trees right here in Seattle, right? Where we make early education, childcare affordable to all because they no longer need a facility or a building. It's the local park. It's constantly moving every single day where you have 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds out on the landscape in rain, snow, or sun, asking themselves questions, discovering, learning, and all very affordably. Exactly how we all used to learn, our parents, our grandparents. Or let's take an elementary school like our Anemone project we've launched here at the Department of Natural Resources, where we are developing an entire elementary school curriculum to investigate ocean acidification issues and solutions. You know, one of my first science class I homeschooled my boy was I actually told him, go solve the Great Depression. Solve the economic reality of it. We know it started with environment where the dust storms were so significant and the soil so depleted and there was no water. I gave him a problem to solve. He had to host the town hall meeting. He had to learn how plants got created. He had to run through problem identification to problem solution and deliver it to an entire town hall that we created in our living room. Giving kids real problems to solve in actual landscapes will give them the ability not only to think creatively and critically, but they might also help us start to solve the problems we as adults haven't been able to figure out. Or this high school program, the Orca School in the city of Everett, which sits on the Port of Everett facility, and every single week, that school, every kid is out on the water collecting data, understanding how the economy around our marine economy works, how our salmon recovery, what's working, what's not working, ocean acidification, sea level, or the school district where they had acres, 36-acre forest land behind that school that belonged to the school district that no one had touched for years. We built a curriculum with that school where now we're teaching 25 kids a year actually on the ground in forest management. They're now not only setting up what is a healthy forest looks like, what does it need to get this forest healthy, when's the harvest time, how much money will it generate, what's a sustainable harvest period, and presenting that to the school board. And when I asked those high school kids, why did you sign up for this class? They said, it is so great to be outside. We need to invite our children to be the ones healing the earth with us, teaching about the dying forest and the importance of forest ecology, forest restoration, our water resources, our agricultural yields, our human recovery, and all the pressing challenges our rapidly changing climate is presenting us. And frankly, in the face of COVID, our biggest health crisis in lifetime, we see more people than ever before taking to the outdoors to heal their minds, their bodies, and spirits. And in the face of COVID, our biggest economic crisis, where our state and federal budgets are facing huge deficits, let's just use this moment to change the way we educate our children. Let's use this moment to transform how our children learn, what they learn, where they learn, and really why they learn. You know, in closing, and I'm looking forward to questions and answers and the opportunity for a conversation, but in closing, you know, in my role overseeing these 6 million land, the largest amount of recreation lands, I see how nature is and how fast nature is changing. And as a mom of 3 boys and 2 of them now that have left the home, I see how too often we take our children for granted just as we take nature for granted until it's gone. It's like the forests and our grasslands where in 72 hours of Labor Day, 600,000 acres burned in Washington State as a result of wildfires. That's 5 times the number of acres that burned all of 2019. It's more than half the number of acres that burned in all of 2015, which was the worst wildfire season on record in Washington State. And I know our story is not worse than Oregon or California or many of our southern states. But we've seen tragically watching an entire town burn down the ground and tragically homes and lives lost. And frankly, it's like the place I grew up walking in the woods as a small child, Multnomah Falls, outside of Portland. I played in these waterfalls. I watched the sun shine through its dense, tall, majestic evergreens. My father took me there on weekends to get a break from the noise of the city and the stress of our lives. We could do everything in those forests. We stood in awe amongst those trees. And 3 years ago, I drove by with my 3 boys, all of them teens. And it was between a conference and a big schedule. And I realized I had never once taken my children to the place I fell in love with nature. And I was thinking I should stop. And then I said, no, I'm too busy. We could do it another day. There'll always be time. And 3 months later, 50,000 acres of these 100-year-old trees tragically burned for over 3 months. And I thought this special childhood place, this place of unparalleled natural beauty, would it always be here? Until it wasn't. My love for nature started as a small child in that forest, but my appreciation for nature came with those burning down. And if you think about it, this is how so much in our life happens. We don't truly appreciate something, truly fight for something, truly stand up for something until we're at risk of losing it, until it's already late and we've lost it. Ralph Emerson once asked, what would you do if the stars came out every 1,000 years? Think about that. Every 1,000 years. No one would sleep that night. I think new religions would be created, right? We'd be unbelievably ecstatic and delirious and just raptured by nature. That one moment in time where something incredible happened, standing in awe. But instead, every single night, stars come out and we watch TV or we play video games. We take it for granted. We know what real rapture actually looks like with nature. It could look like when the moon completely covered the sun in the 2017 total eclipse. It stretched from Oregon to South Carolina. It passed through Idaho, Wyoming, Nebraska, Kansas, Tennessee, Georgia. I think people started to learn the entire United States at eclipse because they all were trying to find a location they could see it from. People traveled to the desert, frozen wastelands, bringing a nation of people out, bringing their children out with them to witness one of the rarest moments and stand in awe of nature. And as we face increasing wildfires, increasing dying off of forests, increasing drought and ocean acidification, what we are fighting for now is not just our children's future, but the future of this planet. And more than ever, we need our children to appreciate it, to understand it, to stand up for it, to fight for it, and to get to work with us saving it. And it starts with getting them outside and letting our kids do what they do best. Question, discover, create, invent, and care, and stand in unbelievable awe. That's our responsibility, is to raise the next leaders and students and policymakers and scientists. And it won't happen get them to care about it. And we can't get them to care about it until we let them go outside and spend more time there. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I can't wait to be with you in person. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you what you do every single day. You are not alone. We are going to get these kids outside, come hell or high water or fires. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. This is Martin LeBlanc, and a Children in Nature Network founding board member. I think everyone can see all the energy that you bring, the passion that you have, and the leadership that you bring our state. I also want to thank you for being a mentor to my daughter, Amelie, as Nature Girl. And I will say the Children in Nature Network has been advocating for outdoor learning for more than a decade. And with you on kind of the front lines of this, how can we use this moment to really advance outdoor learning, in your opinion? And what state policies can you see as such a leader in creating innovative state policies can be put in place to make that happen?
Yeah, so I can't say enough how much COVID has really raised the importance. I keep trying to get people to realize how important our public lands are, recreation, getting outdoors, but unfortunately it's never been a value. But now COVID, we have seen unprecedented number of people using it, more than you would see Labor Day, Memorial Day, and 4th of July. They're all packing our weekdays and weekends, right? And I think it shows you the importance of it for people, especially in a time of real challenge. I gotta say first, I'm always gonna believe that we have got to be including outdoors as part of our education. Outdoor school is 1 year in time, and that should be a requirement in every single state, in every single country. But frankly, 1 week isn't enough. And especially as we know there are so many kids who are divorced from nature, whether it's because of where they live or how much time their parents have. I think we have to be incorporating the education, starting at early education. And we don't need to have built environment for our kids to learn. That's not how our kids have learned if you look back through time, and that the greatest way they're going to learn is by being outdoors and discovering with us, not necessarily with a set curriculum, but having them invent the curriculum as they go with a standard problem. So ideally, and I spoke to the committee, our legislative committee on this, about how we start to incorporate it at every single level. We shouldn't be waiting until high school. We shouldn't be waiting until college. Active learning outdoors, and we should build a curriculum that isn't one state only, but throughout, because we could replicate this everywhere.
Thank you, Commissioner Franz. And I think the audience has a great question. They're curious to hear more about the relationship between Washington government and Indigenous people. Are there concrete and specific steps being taken to honor?
Okay, Martin froze, but hopefully I didn't. Can you all hear me? No, yeah, you can. Okay, we'll get Martin back. Somebody resuscitate him. We work very closely with our First Nations. Did we grab you? We work very close with our First Nations, obviously, in the management and stewardship of our lands. And not only in the policy we set, but actually in the relationship. I think there are more opportunities for how we can partner together on education. A number of the challenges and issues that our public schools are facing, so is our tribal communities. And at the same time, frankly, our tribal communities are some of the most amazing at passing on their cultural history, their environmental values, and teaching the kids the language, the culture, and the history and the environment. And I think we could leverage from the curriculum they've built, as well as the after-school programs, if we made investment and for that leadership. It's part of what we've been doing and thinking about our own working, because we don't need to do education. We believe if we're raising the next stewards of the environment, then everything we've done today will be for naught. And so it is important that we invest in education.
Thank you, Commissioner Franz. Hopefully you can hear me better now that I'm off video. Great.
We got you back.
Thanks, appreciate it. And Commissioner Franz, how do we balance the opportunities for outdoor education in public lands, parks, with the need to protect the health of those spaces and ecosystems, which I know has been a big challenge now with so many new users during COVID, the recreate responsibly, and obviously on the front lines of the wildfires?
Yeah, I think too often we make excuses for why we can't solve problems. It costs too much. That's too hard to do. There are other priorities. So I first start by saying, when it comes to wildfire and the loss of our forest, we're going to pay for it. We're already paying for it. In Washington State, we pay over $153 million a year on average just fighting fires. And that is reacting. We're spending money to react to smoke and flames, which is only 9% of the cost to our economy and our public health, versus being proactive and investing up front and looking at it not only proactive in solving an environmental crisis, our forests, our hotter, drier conditions, but actually seeing it as also solving our economic crisis and frankly our racial and social justice challenges. And so we've been focused on how do we, as we go and say we're going to restore the health of 1.25 million acres over the next 20 years, how do we link that up with communities of color who have limited access to the outdoors, communities of kids, low-income kids who don't necessarily have a traditional pipeline to university, but want to get to work, want to restore their minds, their bodies. We are linked up with the Department of Corrections so that we're putting more people outside where they can physically be healthier, but also emotionally and spiritually and mentally, and then finding pipelines to work afterwards. I think in the face of COVID, as we've seen increasing need for economic opportunity with an unbelievable unemployment highs that we have, coupled with increasing wildfires, I'm all about connecting those two crises to create a win opportunity environmentally, socially, and economically.
Thank you, Commissioner. And, working with other state legislators and other state officials, what do you see as some of the biggest challenge in getting those officials and legislators to see these opportunities and to connect them? Because I know your energy and passion goes a long way, but not everyone can meet that. So what are some of those challenges and how do you see us overcoming them?
Oh my gosh. Well, so the challenges are hard. I mean, I think the hard part is it always like a nice to have. I mean, recreation, outdoor education, caring for our public lands, increasing the amount of public lands, protecting our environment always seem like nice haves. And I think my point is they have a true cost when we lose them, or when they're in harm's way, or they're left to be destroyed like the wildfires. And I think it's our responsibility to leverage this moment, certainly on the west part of the country, where everybody in the state, no matter where they were, everybody in the West Coast experienced the true challenge of underinvesting in our environment in the context of smoke, worst air quality in the world for almost 2 weeks. It's the second year we've had in the last 3 years with that. And obviously the destruction of homes and communities and even loss of life. We've got to make sure people remember that even after the smoke is gone and the sun is out. And we have to get our leaders, and I think it's how we tell the story and make the connection. And we have to elevate more of those stories about people who were unemployed but now are to work and helping on the economic side, but also now restoring the health of a forest, which will now reduce the overall cost that that state's going to pay in wildfires, or the loss in timber resources, or the loss in salmon habitat. We've got to do a better job of telling that story. One of the ways we've actually done is we're engaging kids in telling that story within our public land. So when they go out to hike, the public can see our own kids have told the story about the importance of that forest and what it means for the ecosystem, what it means for the economy, what it means for funding for schools in the state, and what it means for our physical health. And the more we're telling that story and reaching more people with those stories, not just our leaders, but the public, the more people are going to have it as part of their DNA and thinking.
Thank you, Commissioner Franz. I think as we kind of wrap it up, I know that one of the things I love about you so much is that you are always yourself, whether that's speaking to rural audiences, suburban audiences, or urban audiences. And, you know, one of the things that the Children Nature Network is really focused on is how do we build those equitable strategies to the outdoors. So kind of as our final question, you know, one of the issues in our sector, frankly, in both conservation and the outdoor sector is a bit of a lack of diversity and equity. And I'm just wondering, because, you know, you are so at ease and yourself with so many audiences, how do you kind of give us some advice or lessons that you've learned on how we really build those equitable strategies to make sure that our sector is reflective of the cultural mosaic of America?
So first, I would say it's not easy. None of this is easy because it's been generations in the making. And I'll just say I own that my agency is one of the least diverse gender. We have 20% women in the agency and working to address that. We are one of the worst when it comes to racial equity, and we're working, but it's not easy because it's generations in the making. So I think we have to be kind and patient, but not so patient, because frankly, we don't have time to waste. We have to identify ways that we break barriers down. And first, it's about showing up and going into those communities, whether it's urban or rural, or whether it's low-income communities, or whether it's more communities of color. And I think we have to go in and ask them, what are they missing? What do they love about nature? What do they want more of in nature? How do we help provide that? What do they see as pathways if interested for jobs and economic opportunity and solving multiple issues that they may be facing in their community that frankly are related? Too often we think our economy and our environment are against each other when actually they work for each other. I was saying you can't take care of people if you don't take care of place, and you can't take care of place if you don't take care of people. And the more that we see them linked, and the more we actually spend time in diverse communities, we will understand how they think, we'll understand what they value, we'll understand how that thinking and value connects to nature and what it means for them. And then we're not telling them what needs to happen for their community, but we're partnering with them to help them build the vision and future they want.
Well, thank you, Hilary. I actually want to give the final word, and he didn't get introduced, but Jesus Aguirre, who is the wonderful Seattle Parks and Recreation Director and a board member of the Children in Nature Network. So, Jesus, if you want to wrap it up with any final words before we maybe give it to Hilary for a final word. But thank you, Hilary, so much for your commitment, your passion, and your energy.
And Jesus, you're amazing, and so does Seattle Parks. Discovery Park is where I'm going after this for a nice walk now that the smoke is gone. So thank you for your work.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you so much for your passion and for your commitment to all this work. And I think for me, hearing your passion and seeing the passion among all the rest of the participants, like, we're going to get this done. And I think it really is about a commitment that, we need to also remember to wonder and to be excited about things that we sort of take for granted, and make sure that our children are doing the same. So thank you so much for all your work, and thank you to the Children in Nature Network.
Thank you. And one thing, can I just say one little thing really quick? I know I'm almost out of time, but I just realized.
Of course, Hilary, of course.
I know. So I was partnered with the federal government 2 years ago on forest health restoration. They're in the state, not just state, but many states. And they're the biggest part of the crisis. But we didn't just say we should deal with forest health. We actually also said we got to start linking our landscapes up for recreation. And Jesus, you are just front of mind on this. My vision for Washington State and other states is we are starting at the local park, and we are connecting it up with the state lands, that's connecting up with the federal lands, and we're connecting it across east to west and north to south. So honestly, anybody could get on a bike or a horse or their feet and walk from one landscape to the next in a true recreation vision that makes it available to everyone and not just a few. So Jesus, thanks for your leadership. And I think honestly, that's what it is about connecting communities and connecting landscapes and making available to all of our children, no matter where they live.